Right, hello. And this month, well, I've just come back from Diabetes UK in Liverpool, where I had the incredible honor of being asked to present for the Arnold Bloom Lecture. It's one of the highest recognition you can get from your peers, and it's been incredibly humbling, if I'm very honest, about that recognition. And I've also had requests from some, especially those living with diabetes who weren't there, whether they could have a version of the lecture to listen. I'm not aware of what recordings are there, but what I'll try and do is I'll try and replicate with the slides as much as I can do for everybody to know the content of what I said. So we'll give it a try. It's obviously not going to be the actual one. The vibes will be different. I think the nervousness was different, but I'll try. And at least you can see the content which I spoke about. So I'll try and see if we can get this done properly. So share the screen and then see if we can do something funky. There we go. Right. So let's start. So do or do not, there is no try. That was the theme of the lecture and how I started off. And that probably is a definition of what I am. I'm not as talented as a lot of people around in the diabetes world, certainly not from academia point of view or many other things. But what I have been is probably persistent. And I think that's one thing that I always am quite proud of. I don't let it go, so to speak. So that's definitely been something I have stuck to make sure the job was finished. What we need to have a remember as to where we're in 2016, where were we? So there's no nice guidance on CGM at those days. Probably covered 2 to 3% of the whole population. There's no uptake on CGM data, and there's no national type 1 diabetes audits in adults. There was a TA151, which was there since 2008. Pump uptake was 28% pediatrics, 4 to 5% adults, maybe. And there was definitely no use of technology in pregnancy. That was in 2016 where we were. So incredibly low uptakes across the board and variable, some in peds, not hugely across. And then we've had lots of policy changes across the years. That's my 10 years as a decade working in NHS England policy. And those have been the things that have come through one after the other. But in 2026, where are we? So now we do have nice guidelines, NG17, NG18, TA943 on hybrid closed loops. As of end of March 25, 75% across the type 1 diabetes population of CGM, 93% ages 0 to 18. And as in 26, those numbers are expectedly much higher. Hybrid closed loop uptakes, nearly 4 in 5 in children, 1 in 5 across all ages, end of December 25. And we have a funding worth £450 million over 5 years for the hybrid closed loops, on top of the 150 to 200 million pounds we had for CGM. And importantly, over the next 3 years, from 2026 to 2029, £350 million has been allocated to hybrid closed loops. And the idea is to make sure it's protected. But importantly, some of the best HbA1c in children and adults since records began, which is great. Lowest diabetic ketoacidosis rates and pregnancy outcomes have turned around, and global leaders regarding access and outcomes. So a wonderful, wonderful journey and turnaround, a decade's work there, which we're all quite proud of. And for those of you who haven't seen it, there is an online tool for you to look at. You can break it down where everybody is. As you can see, there's hybrid closed loops in type 1, break it down to ages, deprivation, ethnicity, and you can see where we are. Some real good progress in children and hopefully to be replicated in adults for the next 3 years. But there was other things that we did where we used the policy roles to raise the profile of type 1 diabetes. We had a decision support tool. We obviously had language matters with the help of many people from the type 1 diabetes community, which is now more of a global movement, so to speak. And of course, we had the GIRFT report, which focused on type 1 diabetes and the variations, especially on technology, which came out in 2020. Then we also have DigiBeat and with the education program by a digital means for children. We also have had My Diabetes My Way for adults, and that's now going through an overhaul to see if that will continue, in what shape or form. But the idea was to make sure that there was a digital tool available for all ages. And then, of course, we did the peer support work with all these amazing people living with type 1 diabetes, and I thank them all for their help in doing all this policy work. But beyond the policy work, we did some other stuff. We obviously did artists, for those you remember, type 1 diabetes, people living with type 1 diabetes and using their musical talent to sort of, show where we can. Then we obviously had Rise of the Machines, for those you can remember, many years ago. Those were before the days of hybrid closed loops. We talked about DIY, pancreas, how we can get that ethos into people's lives. And you can see some of the stalwarts in that picture. Elizabeth Robertson from Breakthrough, sorry, from Diabetes UK, Rachel from JDRF in those days, Roman Hovorka, Pratik and Lalanta, all of that. And of course, we had TAD, still continues and still is on this year. So look forward to seeing some of you hopefully there. And the use of celebrities to raise their profile in James Norton, Ed Gamble. But we also had these things whereby working with one of my very good colleagues, Dr. Mayank Patel, we also had the comic books raising this different ways of trying to raise profiles. And beyond type 1 diabetes, there's some work done as well. We had some best practice in delivery of diabetes care and primary care network. And thank you to the people involved, which was Naresh Kanumili, Nikki Mill, Sarah Ali, Sarah Alicia, Hannah Bieber, all of them doing great work. We did some work around rolling out support for young type 2 diabetes, which was one of the first globally. And finally, some work with the genetic teams to make sure the tests were readily available, thanks to Maggie Shepherd and Andrew Hattersley and all of them. So quite a lot of work which was done across the board, type 1 diabetes, also beyond type 1 diabetes. But along the way, what happened? This was me in September 2015, actually, with Simon Stevens, who had said at that time, "You want to join NHS England?" I wasn't quite sure, if I'm very honest, about whether that was a good thing to do. I was happy in Portsmouth doing integrated care, and he said, "Well, you're doing some good work there. Why didn't you come and join the national team?" And frankly, that wasn't quite at the top of my things to do. So we then moved on, and in 2016 we had this whole thing whereby there was a whole debate and discussion around NICE, and of course, lots of debates about, NICE, which wasn't really delivering, or at least the NICE guidelines weren't being implemented. It was publicly fun to challenge, so to speak. So then I went to meet NHS England Medical Director, which was Bruce Keogh, and then my first meeting, so to speak, in a policy with Jonathan Balabji. I made a joke about how his face looked, no, his smile looked fixed, as he wasn't quite sure how to deal with somebody like me. But there we were. It was the start of that journey, and it's been a most wonderful journey with this man. As I'll say to everybody, people say it's very difficult to handle Parth. It isn't. You just need to find somebody like Jonathan in your life. So for every maverick out there, find your Jonathan is my advice. And here you are. You can see 10 years of friendship. We become family friends. He has been a very good, superb guide for me over the time, and it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful mentor, friend, and frankly, a lot of the things, the success has been down to him guiding me, so to speak. But you always worry about people and their views and what do clinicians feel. But then you look back as to who have been there for you. So here is Andrew Hattersley, and I'm incredibly proud of this position, whereby he said some very kind words, and I've always come to the conclusion he was under the influence of alcohol, or whatever it may be. It's or he really meant it, but whatever it may be, it was so nice. And Andrew Hattersley is literally the closest thing to an absolute genius. The work he has done to improve lives globally. So for somebody like him to say that was amazing. And then we have had Kamalesh Kunti, who I affectionately we all call Kaka. And he's a mentor not just to me, but so many people, always there. And then if a phone call when you're struggling with this or that. So incredibly grateful for these doyens of diabetes care who have been so kind along the way. And I wanted to mention a debt of gratitude to a few people whose names may not be that in the public domain. This is me with Nick Calm and Adrian Long. And they are individuals who live with type 1 diabetes, and they were there when nobody else was, is the honest truth. And I'm really grateful for their kindness and the support over the years and the impact they've had in many people's lives. And I'm so grateful for their support and friendship in those tough times, and they've still continued to be. And I'm really, really grateful for their help. This is Shafi Kamruddin, for those of you who don't know, is a consultant up in Darlington, Durham. And again, one of the few who opened the doors for the prescription Libra when we were really struggling to make a headway. And Shafi will always remember me as the person who was there to help you when, again, not many clinicians were around. And finally, Sam Roberts, Chief Exec of NICE, who was a great guide, helping along the way, talking about what we need to do better, what we can do for evidence, how could we get these things into people's lives. So really, really grateful. And then some special, very, very special friends. Mayank Patel, I've already mentioned. I regularly joke about him being the him being the chap who my parents really wanted, calm, kind, empathetic, and it's been a wonderful friendship on many fronts. And then you got Alistair Lumf, who led the Diabetes Technology Network, and Alistair is just incredibly kind man, really good friend. Reza Zaidi, working in Liverpool, always somehow finds time to speak, and I'm very grateful. And finally, Lala, one of the best academics I've known, but he's always been pushing me in his inimitable style, asking me to sort of get technology into people's lives. The science needs to get into people's lives, Partha. That's what he kept on saying. And great, great support of these guys. Wanted to take a moment to mention these amazing, amazing individuals who I call as queens. Fiona Campbell, nothing short of a legend, and I think a lot of the things that we see in diabetes care in pediatrics is down to this amazing lady, and she's taught me the essence of never giving up the Northern Star, always focusing and always at it. Don't give up, she said. And she doesn't care about anybody. She just wants better care for children living with type 1. That is so much to be admired, I must say. And I love that. It is quite amazing. And then Helen and Eleanor, who I affectionately call Eleanor, and some of the unbelievable examples of female leadership, which fundamentally is different from male leadership in my experience. And their guidance, their friendship has been most wonderful. I'm, as I said before, nowhere near as talented as any of them, but their approach towards me to understand how their science that they work so hard to get into people's lives, it's been a most wonderful, and I'm very, very grateful for their guidance along the years. And of course, allies we must speak of. June James, bless her heart and bless her soul, and Debbie Hicks for Trend and the Diabetes Specialist Nurse Forum. Great allies over the years, doing lots of things together, raising the profile, continually helping with education. And of course, Jerry Raymond, who you can see the picture, who has been a bit like Gandalf to me, is always there. And his passion, his age is irrelevant, his passion continue. He used to be my teacher when I was a trainee, and this man's passion never went away. I think that's just amazing. And finally, of course, I have to mention May Ng, who helped so much in the data analysis of pediatrics during the hybrid closed loop pilots. Finally, to also talk about beyond clinician charities, without charities, you can't make progress. So I'm going to mention two people, Hilary Nathan from Breakthrough Type 1 Diabetes and Bridget Turner from Diabetes UK, who have been such great friends and guides and just kind people in their quest to make lives better. And then you have Karen Addington, as I say, we probably in my 10 years, decades, seven prime ministers, eight prime ministers, God knows, I've lost count. But Karen has been constant, the chief exec of Breakthrough T1D, formerly known as JDRF. Just, great. And Chris Askew, who was the chief exec of Diabetes UK, astute, politically savvy, and also great guide along the way. And of course, to Colette Marshall, who has been at the helm of Diabetes UK and very kind to offer me this award as well. Industry, I could speak a lot of people. I could speak with Nikki Copeland and Sam Howard from Abbott, Neil Harris and I could speak about Zoe Chalewa, Ben Byrne from Dexcom in those days, Alexander Lansborough from Ipsum, and lots of good people. But there's one person I really wanted to speak about, and this is this gentleman. His name is Ollie Mitchell. And not many of you will know him, but again, I'll reiterate, without Ollie Mitchell and his kindness, his thought process, his ability to collaborate together, I don't think this journey happens. So I just wanted to say thank you to him publicly as well. This I always like as a picture because this shows Roman Hovorka, and I do affectionately call him God because of what he has created, the algorithm to try and help people, which I think is just unbelievably amazing. And this is a picture of me, Pratik, Emma, and Lala together because Roman wanted to show us the algorithm, how it works, and we were just stunned and fascinated what we saw. And in a policy role, you then look at it and say, well, what do we do to bring this into people's lives? No success happens without an engine room. And this is the NHS England engine room. There's many people in this picture, but I do want to, and it just shows how many people you need to make success. But I did want to make a mention of Mark Brodigan, Verity Kirk, who have been amazing, Fiona Earnshaw, Emma, they've all been great. And I've also been very fortunate to have four managers in my tenure with the diabetes team, and they've all, in their ways, been great supporters of the journey. Matthew Fagg, Tom Newbound, Sean Crow, Karen Kennedy. And we haven't always agreed, but that's how it should be in a team. But they've always been there to, give their views, but eventually make things happen. So that's an important thing. Which brings us to some very special people. I mean, this is Emma Wilmot and Pratik Chaudhary, and there is a reason. We always seem to be in this particular position, Emma in the middle and me on one side and Pratik on the other. And it always makes me think, if you look at Pratik, you always think of a man who's just clever, scientific, horror, wants to do everything the right way. And then there's me, who basically doesn't care much about working with many people, really keen to work as a loner and just wants to get it done, whatever be the outcome. And then you got Emma, who's just supremely clever and knows how to keep the boys in check, which with my DC comic and Marvel comic analogies and comic book analogy in short made us think that that's pretty much the three of us. But there are some interesting things, when you also work with Pratik, and this email I wanted to show you all. This email came around, which was fascinating for the first two paragraphs. And I was looking at this going, wow, charming presenter, very pleasing on the eye. This is all very well till you read the last line, and then you understand they're talking about Pratik, not me. Beyond I always make the joke of all brown people being the same, but I just want to reiterate Pratik is the clever one. So I know lots of people confuse us, and sometimes we end up being, people have given up, and both of us end up being called Patrick. But no, Pratik and me are different, and I just wanted to make that sort of funny but poignant email point out. And this person was just, as I call it, the absolute boss. There is no other way around it. I mean, for this lecture, for those of you who are not there, she made the trip from London just to attend this. And I don't think I've been more grateful in my life for that. Stephanie Amell, I mean, she doesn't have any business in spending any time with somebody who's not even, nowhere near got any brains. But she's been such a great guide and mentor and help and just encouraging. And I am forever grateful, forever grateful. I call her the absolute boss because she means everything. Her views mean everything to me. So I just wanted to acknowledge that very clearly about her role in the journey over 10 years. And then there are these people, the family away from home, Evelyn Nicholson, Ian Cranston, Mike Cummings, and Daryl Meeking. And we are family. We go to holidays together, we have fun together. And I knew they were mostly here, and it was great to have them. And Arthur Carr doesn't exist with his brand or his swagger or his positions or gets the freedom to do what he does at a national without these guys' support and help and kindness and love. And I am forever grateful, forever lucky to have them in my life. But this role brings you lots of highs. Let's be very honest. There was a recent breakthrough event where I got recognized by those living with type 1 diabetes, which was an incredible, humbling, and poignant moment. Went to the Palace a fair few years ago in 2021 and recognized for work in diabetes care. Forever grateful for that. A couple of years back, went to TAD and an incredibly unexpected standing ovation, which I don't think I deserve, but it is humbling. It is humbling. And then you have celebrities who looks like they've fallen in love with you, so which is great. So not too bad. Life's not too bad, to be honest. But then there are lows, and I wanted to show you that this is an example or an event, and I think it's important to talk about lows, that there are failures as we go along. And this is a picture of me trying to bring a lot of people together for a mental health event, trying to, try and tackle mental health in diabetes and calling out for examples of good practice. We even started this pilot project, and I'm not going to go into the reasons of it and why it didn't work, and but it didn't work, and I will always regret that I didn't put it the full attention or didn't quite be able to pull this one off. And I do apologize to a lot of people because this is an incredibly debilitating condition. I've got those living with type 1 with this condition under my care. I know how tough it is and how variable the care is. And I do apologize to many people for not being able to land this. It will always be a regret of mine. And hopefully, the next generation can take it forwards and make this incredibly important thing happen. I want to talk a little bit about social media because I think that's important about what people say that social media is there for me to boost my ego. But I don't tell people or pay people to write about me, and they do, and it's a lovely reflection of what's going on, and I do enjoy reading them. It's like anybody likes feedback, and seeing things like a little girl waking up on Christmas morning excited for a present, it makes me happy. It does make me happy. Then you have these things from clinics as well. It does make me happy. I will not make any two bones about it. I want to know whether I change anybody's life, and it's important to see that. But social media comes with a good, whereby you can challenge celebrities. Richard Osman from Pointless making a pointless joke about diabetes. And as I keep saying, diabetes is nobody's, butt of jokes. So challenging that, and then finally having an apology. Then there was one with Paul Hollywood. So you can use social media for good and challenging narratives. There's the bad, and there was a very good example of this. I went out and over breakfast one day tweeted a picture of this, and then you had these things that came back, and people not being very happy about what I had said. And then this gentleman said that this was the way I was creating job security, which is weird. But then I also get this, and I think it's important for people to realize some of the other side of the things I get, and that's what I also get via email. This one came along. But there's the ugly, right? And I think it's important to see the ugly where people are very clear about me not belonging. They want me to leave. They want me to take a boat or whatever they want. And I keep on saying, and like people say, and I've made a joke about this recently. People said, why didn't you go back to the place where you were born? And I keep on saying, well, that's okay. I'm very happy with the job in Portsmouth and I'm not aware of any new jobs in Dudley. But it does show what we do get. And I think that's important for people to recognize what people of color do get when you're public. So social media is not just fun and games. It does have its other flip side in the present modern world. And I also got this as an email whereby I was told that the only way I could take things forward was by looking after people just after my own community. So, there is no lack of advice via social media. But there we are. So that's also part of the life. And then you have the funny, where you have this, whereby somebody said they had a bear called Partha, which I think is wonderful. And I will always remember that. It's not very commonly that you have a bear named after you. And then you have this gentleman, ex-commissioner, saying, I'm still waiting for him to catch up with me. I think there's enough data about accountability. I'm always here for accountability. As a leader, I've always said leadership does depend on accountability. I'm happy to sit down with anybody over any type 1 diabetes outcomes and what technology has done to lives and data across the population. But these things also happen that you have to challenge people. And these were examples of me picking up examples of people contacting me. And that does annoy people, has annoyed people. And frankly, I don't make any apologies for that because my job is to help those with type 1 diabetes. And I have done it or tried to do it to the best of my ability and challenging people when they've hid behind emails or whatever they've tried to hide behind. This came up from Richard as to who would be the next person, right now. What happens when Partha retires? Well, I'm not retiring, but I am stepping down from the technology role. So who are the people who will do? And these is who they are. That's Mark Atkin and Sophie Harris. And one thing I wanted to make very clear to everybody that I wouldn't hand over anything to anybody, especially so close to my heart, if it wasn't going to the right people. And in Mark Atkin and Sophie Harris, you have two absolutely wonderful people with the right values, the right core of what they want to do. And, I'm always there at the end of a phone call, but I am confident that they will take the legacy forward and they are the right people for it. So, to everybody who has given me all the love and support over the years, please do the same to Mark and Sophie, and they will deserve it. They need it. So, yes, I am happy that this is in good hands. Challenges. I'm going to take a moment to talk about Lila, and obviously at the meeting, I was very grateful to meet John's story. I think as a community, this is it. This is the priority. Lila should have had a third birthday, and as I've said to John, you know, as a system, as we should apologize. I apologize that this happened. We should have done better. There are no excuses around it. There is nothing to say about this, that, what if. There is none. Lila shouldn't have died, and she did. And John and Emma's fortitude to taking this on is incredible. And I am so grateful that they have find the time and the energy and the compassion to work with people to make it happen. And it's our responsibility. as a community to make it better, and we must and we should. There are other challenges as well, and that's good. And I think challenges should be there for other people to take it forward. But the future sparkles. There's Shivani Mishra with me in that picture, who is, to me, one of the brightest minds in type 2 diabetes, not just in the UK, but globally. And people should learn from her, work with her. That's the future. They have Fulia and Reza, who I mentioned. Fulia doing some amazing work in pediatric diabetes care, and Reza and young adults. Again, people you should all interact with, learn from, and try and cascade good work. Then you go to primary care, and you have Naresh for Primary Care Diabetes Society and Sam Saidu. Again, great friends, great allies, and just good people with a really intention to improve care, and people should work with them as much as they can to improve diabetes care. And finally, in the world of research, there is Rachel Besser and partner, and they're doing some absolutely unbelievable work when it comes to screening, immunotherapy, what needs to be done. And they will undoubtedly be the stars of the future, if not the present, they already are. And follow their work. This is going to be such an important avenue of work for sure. So finally, a little bit things about leadership. This has always been me and my belief. This is Jurgen Klopp, who came to Liverpool in 2015, and this is what he said: changing doubters to believers. And that has been the focus of my leadership style. How do we try and help the type 1 diabetes community change to believers from a time when we didn't have access to anything to today? So some leadership tips: please share your vision with people. Surround yourself with people cleverer than you. This is incredibly important. This has been absolutely the success story of mine. Be accessible and honest. Be clear about what can and cannot be, and be there. Be there for people. One of my strengths has been my accessibility to the community I serve, and I would encourage leadership to do that with whoever you lead. And leadership should be defined by outcomes, not process. I'm going to just give you an example of this paper, which I found and kept it secure, what I scribbled down 2016 about what I wanted to do. Not everything has happened, but it's about making clear you have a vision and what you want to do going ahead. Leadership journey, system bias, call racism for what it is. Don't hide behind corporate terms such as unconscious bias or we need to do better. If there is racism, you call it, you challenge it, you tackle it. And you don't have to compromise your convictions to be compassionate. You can be both. You can be absolutely both. If you're in a leadership journey, I can absolutely tell you that no one sees the early mornings, the late nights, doubts, sacrifices, but one day they will see the result and call it luck. And this is very true. So don't take it to heart. Keep at it and don't forget what you're doing. And to anybody in diabetes, we serve the people with diabetes. That is the bigger picture. There is no other bigger picture. That is it. This is the job. This is what we do. We improve outcomes, whatever the consequence along the way. And collaboration should not be confused with collusion or compromise. When you're in a meeting and you, in the name of collaboration, and people are asking you to compromise, you don't compromise your own life or your journey. You are compromising who you represent, the people living with diabetes. I think just remember that. And then you won't be gaslighted into colluding when actually they're using the words collaboration. The final reflections. Imposter syndrome happens to the best of us, and I'm not immune and you will not have, if you're in the leadership journey, we all have it, everybody. It was even a few months ago when I was in an ATTD conference, and at the table with me, I was sitting at the table with George Alberti, Stephanie Emil, Roman Hoberka, Helen Murphy, Eleanor Scott, and I looked around saying, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. And even now, after all this, that hits you from time to time. It's natural, and it's fine. Do I belong is a question I've been asked after being told a number of times I'm not English and Indigenous. I have stopped caring. I'm an international medical graduate from Calcutta, and I came here and I did the best work to the best of my ability. I'm not asking for anybody's permission to belong. I am who I am, and my record is what it is. And I think I'm very happy and proud with what has happened along the way. You learn to shrug off the hate and hypocrisy. That's normal. And if you have that degree, people are there, so that's fine. And I always say jealousy is earned. So if people are jealous of what you've done, you have done something. And in where I come from, there's a saying in Hindi, which is called "baat unhi ki hoti hai, jisme baat hoti hai," which simply plain terms means people only talk about you when you're worth talking about. So that's fine. That's okay. But In a lighter vein, some myth busting. There's something I've heard and I've seen written down. I'm me managing to charm people to get funding and approval for diabetes technology in the NHS. I am not Ryan Gosling. It needs a lot of hard work, and hopefully, I've shown a lot of people in the team to make it happen together. Together, we do it as a team. We collect data, we show evidence, we do a lot of work to get it there. As lovely as it sounds, I am not that charming. I'm nothing special. I just have optics, illusions, and good PR. Also lucky. Okay. Well, if a guy from Calcutta is coming and just achieving these things with optics and illusions, then maybe some of you need to take training from me in optics. Or it could be a lot of hard work. And predictable talks about hair, Marvel comics. I got this and that. Well, my hair is what it is, and I do talk about it. Marvel comics, I think, teaches you a lot, and the rest of it is what it is along the way. So, but biggest factor of them all, those living with type 1 diabetes. As a community, you all have been absolutely magic. You are everything for me. I have no regrets with what I've done. I probably could have done more, done better, but I've tried everything in my within my talent, within my energy to do what I can do over 10 years. The love that you've all shown me has been amazing. And please carry that on with whoever comes next, as I mentioned. But thank you, and thank you to all of you, those living with type 1 diabetes carers. From the bottom of my heart, I am indebted to all of you for giving me a career beyond my wildest dreams. But why do we do what we do? Well, on one end, here's the picture of a couple of our, those of us we look after in our clinic, and Amy, Annabelle, and baby Aurora. Hybrid closed loops, the impact of it, the lives, and then you have this.
Starting the Omnipod on the 29th of October. No, I'm not. Actually. Yeah.
That is why we do what we do. Simple changes in lives. Type 1 diabetes. Incredibly debilitating condition. It's unforgiving, it's unremitting. And the minimum we can do in our roller policy when we don't have the diagnosis ourselves is to try and improve lives, improve quality of lives. So what next? Well, that's a bit of me. I love this word, and that's always been me, right? And I've decided to lean more into my culture, my heritage, be very proud of it. As I said, I am who I am. Came from Calcutta, India, absorbed the culture here, spent 27 years now here, and it's been a wonderful ride. But that's who I am. So I just want to say thank you to all of you again. And I started with a quote, and I'll finish with one, which probably defines, when I look back, and that's that one. And I really do, hopefully made a few people happier than they would. And I'm as rich as I ever need to be because of that. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to stop there. So hopefully that was a reasonable run through, and that was, as I said, doesn't quite get you the right vibes, but it gives you an idea what I spoke about, and the love and kindness and the gratitude I have towards those with the type 1 diabetes community, and just recognizing hopefully a lot of people along the way. So thank you, and yeah, so hopefully catch up with some of you some point somewhere, and yeah, till then, thank you.